highly classified information from the NSA when he worked there as a contractor back in 2013 when he was working there under Obama. And so he snuck a SD card into, I think it was the NSA headquarters or one of the NSA branches, and he saw things during his career in the NSA that he knew were illegal that the U.S. government was doing. So he was like, he had to make pretty much a determination because he was making like hundreds of thousands of dollars as an NSA contractor. And he ultimately decided to go the route of, you know what? The American people need to know what the hell is going on. So he leaked all this information to journalists. He took a flight to Hong Kong. He was living in Hawaii at the time. He took a flight to Hong Kong and he leaked it out little by little. And he did interviews with journalists in Hong Kong. And piece by piece, the U.S. government started realizing who the hell was leaking this, because at first they didn't know. They thought it was just some secret person leaking it. And then Edward Snowden was like, you know what? I'm not afraid of them. I'm going to come out and say it. I'm going to put it on video. And I'm going to show my face to the world. And I'm going to let them know who it is that's leaking this. So he did. He leaked all this. The Obama administration and administrations and previous for the past 30, 40, even 50 years have been illegally and warrantless, without a warrant, spying on American citizens through like Verizon phone records and internet records and all these things. Extremely unconstitutional and illegal. And he was like, the people need to know, okay? I'm not like some savior or anything, but, you know, I've seen this in my job, and then I've tried to bring this up to other people in the NSA as an NSA contractor, and everyone was like, oh, it happens all the time, basically. So once the U.S. government found out that it was Edward Snowden, and once he made that interview especially, they started like trying to beforehand they were surveilling his house in Hawaii, and then they pretending to be construction workers, because apparently he had a lot more construction around his house, you know, quote unquote. Trying to be conspicuous, the NSA, go fucking figure, right? So he was in Hong Kong, though. They didn't even know that. And then they found out, and then they decided to send paperwork to Hong Kong officials in China. And people that don't know, Hong Kong isn't an official part of China. It was leased from Great Britain when they, you know, took over it, I think 100 years ago, and they put a 100-year lease on it. And that 100-year lease ended in 1997, I believe. But it was under the understanding of after that 100-year lease was up, that there would be a 50-year, you know, grace period that they would establish the government, and then it would go back to China. And over those 100 years, China wasn't even fucking communist over that. And now China is super communist. But anyways, I digress. Going off topic. So, they sent paperwork to Hong Kong, and they tried to arrest him. And Edward Stoden was like, fuck. Like, they started, like, seeing, like, where he was at in the videos, because he showed, like, the scenery from his hotel room in Hong Kong. And then they were like, you know what? Well, we're going to track this motherfucker down. We're going to find out where he is. We're going to arrest him. We're going to extradite him and bring him back and charge him under the Espionage Act. I think it was from 1914 or 1915. An old law. They wanted to use him as an example. Anyway, so he was like, fuck, I got to get out of here. And there were many other countries that actually offered him not many. There was only actually one or two that offered him asylum. So one of them, I think, was Ecuador. Same place Julian Assange. Whole other topic for a whole other different day. Ecuador offered him asylum, and he was like, okay, I'll go to Ecuador. So he left Hong Kong, and his flight path was through Russia. All right? And then, lo and behold, I don't know why the U.S. government didn't do this to begin with, but they canceled his passport on his way from Hong Kong to to Russia and then eventually to Ecuador, and he was stuck in Russia. A lot of people think that he went to Russia directly just for asylum. No, Edward Snowden got stuck in Russia because the U.S. government was very neglectful and everything, and they were trying to issue his passport or his boarding pass to Ecuador, and they're like, "Oh, sorry, your passport doesn't work. We can't give you your boarding pass." So he was just stuck in limbo in Russia for like a month, stateless basically, and Putin was like, "Well, this is basically the Russians treated it like, well, this is a hot potato. We don't want to deal with this, all right? We just want to get rid of this problem." And they were originally, I think, they were wanting just to get rid of Edward Snowden. They didn't want him in his borders, but they also understood that he was there not by his own choice, but because of the Americans canceling his passport in a territory that isn't friendly to the USA. Fucking thanks. They canceled his passport on the way to a country that doesn't even have an extradition treaty for the United States. There's our taxpayer money. There's where our tax dollars go, ladies and gentlemen. Anyways, I digress. So the Russians were like, well, how do we deal with this? So Edward Snowden was stuck there for a month because the Russians didn't let him into Russia because he was just a hot potato. Anyway, so what happened was, I think it was the president of Ecuador at that time. I don't remember his name, but he traveled to Russia to completely unrelated things. He went there to discuss gas importations or something like that, something involving oil. And the NSA thought that that president was going there to sneak Edward Stoden back to Ecuador because they had already given him asylum. And after the president of Ecuador left Russia, they fucking grounded his plane. They didn't let the plane land in any other airport to refuel. They grounded a presidential plane, which really, that's illegal as fuck. You can't ground a presidential plane from any country. That's violating international law, ladies and gentlemen. So they grounded it and they searched the plane. I think it might have been in the UK. They landed, the president of Ecuador landed, and they were like, we believe basically Edward Snowden is on board and you're sneaking him back to Ecuador. And they searched the fucking plane. Illegal. Everything at this point is illegal because my government was basically strong-arming other governments saying, look, if you give this man asylum, we will stop sending this foreign aid or that foreign aid. And the most countries denied Edward Snowden asylum, except Ecuador. That's why they grounded his plane anyways. So, long story short, they grounded it and they searched his fucking plane. Highly illegal under international law. And they didn't find him. Go and behold, Edward Stoden was still in the fucking Russian airport at the time. And he found out and he was like, wow, they grounded a presidential plane thinking I was on board. And anyways, that was the incident that gave Russia pretty much the go-ahead to say, you know what, fuck this. They grounded this dude's plane that just came over to our country, Russia, to, discuss something completely unrelated to the Edward Snowden incident, just to look for Edward Snowden, and they violated international law. Okay, fuck the Americans then. We're giving him asylum then. After you did that, before we were just going to give him away. We were going to give him back to you guys. But now, you violated international law? All right. We're going to give him temporary asylum. We're going to give some positive press to the Russians for once. Anyways, that's why Edward Snowden is in Russia and has been in Russia to this day after he leaked all that highly classified information from the NSA back in 2013. He didn't go to Russia by choice. He was stuck there by the negligence of our government. And just to point that out, I believe Edward Snowden was 100% correct with him leaking that. If I was in his position, I mean, I'm just saying, I know I'm a U.S. Army veteran and I probably shouldn't say this, but they were fucking doing shit extremely illegal and highly unconstitutional. The NSA, the CIA, warrantless surveillance through third party, the Verizon and internet providers, yeah, completely violates the Fourth Amendment of the Constitution. Anyways, I digress. My point being, I support Edward Snowden. I think what he did was completely noble and a very hard decision to make. And a very hard decision to make. Because he left a fucking $100,000 job. Because it's not easy to get into the fucking NSA, obviously. You have to go through lots of background checks. You have to get a fucking high security clearance above top secret. Let me put it like that. I had a secret clearance when I was in the U.S. Army. Okay? So 2 levels, 3 levels above that, I can't even fucking imagine, man. But it's crazy. But the story about Edward Snowden was very manipulated in the media. And that's why I made this video, to begin with. Because, in my opinion, actually it's not even just my opinion, it's obvious based on the facts of the case, Edward Snowden is a fucking patriot. Abrolio's out. Peace. Yeah. How you like my 3-piece suit, by the way, guys? I never do it. I'm actually getting a different colored suit next week. Tired of just black. I'm going to get a tailored dark blue suit next week. But anyways, yeah.